What's up, guys? I'm BTC. A brand new patch today on the live version of the game. Some really awesome buffs. Nah, just kidding. It's a whole bunch of nerfs. They're actually pretty significant nerfs. These are going to be in the experimental mode for the time being, but like always, most of those experimental changes do get brought over to the live version of the game. And we also got an update on when this experimental is going to end, which is next Monday, meaning that almost certainly on Tuesday, these changes will go into the regular game modes, the quick play, competitive, arcade, all that sort of stuff. Before we get into the balance changes, there was something else that got changed just recently, and it was a very small hotfix to the game. It wasn't a big patch or anything like that, but I do want to point it out, is that they changed how the flex queue works. Previously, you would get 2 of the tickets for any match that you lost. They've changed it down to only 1, and the reason was because exactly what I thought was going to happen, which was people would just queue up and they would deliberately lose matches in order to get a bunch of tickets so that they can play the role that they want. Now, for quick play, it's not really a big deal, but for competitive, obviously, that's a really big problem when you have people just queuing up all the time to throw the matches to get some priority tickets. So they've changed that. Now you only get 1 ticket for losing. The first character we're going to look at is Echo, who got some pretty significant damage nerfs. The first thing is that she now only has 12 total attacks instead of 15, which is what it was, so it got reduced by 3, meaning that you have to reload a little bit more often. Overall, your damage will go down in the long term over the course of a round or a match, and even in shorter fights, you're going to need to reload a little bit more often, but the individual attacks still do the same damage as before. It's just now you have to reload more often. The other nerf that she got is with the focusing beam. So the duration has been reduced from 2.5 seconds down to 2 seconds, which is actually pretty significant. For an ability that only has an uptime of 2.5 seconds, taking a full half second off that is pretty significant. That's a lot of damage that you're going to lose out on. Most of these changes for Echo were made in order to make her weaker versus larger health characters, so tanks basically, right? They wanted to make it so that Echo is not going to be as effective against any in the tank category, any with lots of health, lots of armor. However, this shouldn't change too much about dealing with characters that only have 200 hit points, because for the most part, you shouldn't really need to reload, or, using just the focusing beam once they're at half should be enough to take them out regardless. So, for the most part, this is more going to affect Echo versus tanks, but still, overall, definitely a pretty significant damage reduction for the character. Next up is Tracer, who is also getting a bit of a damage nerf. What they're doing with her is they are rescaling her fall-off range. So previously, it was 13 to 23 meters. It has been reduced down to 12 to 20 meters. So what that means is that previously, so this is about 10 meters from that robot. So previously, you would start your damage fall off maybe right about here-ish or so. So this is where you would start losing damage, but instead now, you're going to start losing damage about here instead. And then for the maximum where you would finally hit that 50% drop off, instead of being at 23 meters, which is probably about here, now it's going to be about here. So you're going to start losing damage sooner with Tracer. If you're really close and you're kind of, in that sweet spot for Tracer, then you're still going to do max damage. But as you're moving further away and you're trying to just kind of pick at the enemy a little bit to build some of that ult charge, it's going to start doing less and less and less damage. So not a massive change if you're still playing up close, but it's definitely going to be a noticeable drop-off in her total damage output. Next up is Zenyatta, who's getting a bunch of nerfs as well. The first thing is that both the Orb of Harmony and the Orb of Discord, the projectile speed on these are getting reduced from 120 down to 90. So this means that it is now going to take longer before the effect is going to be applied to whatever you're hitting. So if you're putting the Orb of Discord on that target, you can see that it takes a long time. Like, there's a very noticeable travel time to that projectile now. where a lot of people kind of felt like it was almost instant before because it was at, 120 meters per second. But now at 90 meters per second, there is definitely a very noticeable kind of slow sluggishness to the movement of that Orb of Discord. And the same thing goes for the Orb of Harmony as well. So that means that moving it from friendly target to friendly target, there's going to be a bit of delay. So, I mean, Zenyatta's healing has never been about any sort of big immediate rescue of your teammates because it only does 30 healing per second anyways. So it's not like you could just throw this on one of your teammates and expect to keep them, safe through a whole bunch of damage. That's just not going to happen. But now it's also got this kind of sluggishness where you're going to be moving it from target to target as well. Now, another thing that they nerfed with the Orb of Discord specifically was the damage amplification was reduced from 30% down to 25%. So both of them are slower, and the Orb of Discord is a little bit weaker in terms of the bonus damage. The healing, however, hasn't been touched. That's the same. It's just slower now. Here's the thing about these changes, though. They're primarily focused on the upper bracket, specifically Masters and GM, Diamond to a lesser degree, but the fact of the matter is, characters like Zenyatta are very rarely used in the lower bracket. He's almost always one of the least played support characters in the entire game. Actually, I think Brig is the lowest right now, but usually Zenyatta is the lowest of the support characters in the lower bracket. As far as Tracer, also one of the lesser used DPS in the lower bracket. Echo is kind of more middle of the road, I think, just because it's a flying character and people think it's cool to play it. But for the most part, these changes are going to affect the upper bracket. So if you're in anywhere from bronze to plat and even a little diamond, these aren't going to have too much of an impact on what goes on in your matches. For the upper bracket, though, these are some really big changes, because right now Zen is very, very powerful. Echo can also be very, very powerful, and Tracer just in general is a powerful character. It usually depends on the meta whether or not she's actually going to get used, but while these are significant nerfs to the character, only a very small amount of the player base is actually gonna really notice them and care. So it's not exactly the end of the world, but I mean, it's obviously not nice. I mean, I think everyone would rather see buffs going into the game or some other interesting changes rather than just seeing nerf after nerf after nerf after nerf with these patches. Now, another thing that I do want to quickly bring up, though, again, remember that these experimental changes are only going to be going until Monday, and then on Tuesday, they're going to be putting it onto the live version of the game, almost certainly. But also remember that the Hanzo event is going to be ending in a couple of days as well. So if you haven't done that and you want to get that Hanzo skin, then make sure you go ahead and do that. So what do you guys think about these changes? Let me know down below. A big thanks to all the Paragons and other channel members for all your support. If you'd like to become one and grab some cool rewards, click the join button down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like before you leave. And remember, always, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.